No, mine's not.
All right, we will call the Thursday, March 26, 2026 City Commission meeting to order. All 5 commissioners are present, one via Zoom. First item on the order of business is consideration of the minutes from February 26. Questions, changes, or comments on that?
Looks perfect.
None from me, thank you.
And we will approve those as presented. Next up, financial statement for the month of February 2026. Mr. Rupp.
Good afternoon, Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. This is a summary of revenue and expenditure activities for the City of Hayes, month ended February 28th, 2026. Revenues in February totaled $1,457,171. That's a decrease of $268,545 when we compare to the same period last year. Notable areas of increased revenue, looking back to February of 25, golf course revenue increased $36,000 over the same period. Another reimbursement from KDOT for the ongoing carbon reduction path project increased Parks Improvement Fund revenue by $19,800, and water sales and conservation increased $8,200. Notable areas of revenue decrease: airport improvement was off $29,936 for the Grant 41 reimbursement from FAA this time last year. That was in connection with parcel acquisition for future expansion. CCR, or Commission Capital Reserve, fell $429,769 due to the 27th and Main transaction received a year ago at this time. Expenditures in February totaled $3,688,567. That's a decrease of $962,907. Some notable areas of increased expenditure: timing of the budget allocation payment to DHDC, increased CVB outside agency expenditures $54,000. Fleet maintenance rose $11,300 due mainly to an increase in equipment expense, which can include oil changes, tires, and other related repairs. Solid waste reserves increased $11,000 for the purchase of roll-off containers. And the sewer repairs at 6th and Main increased water reclamation reserve expenditures $17,495. Some notable areas of decreased expenditure: the timing of the payment of the budget allocation for library and library employee benefit this time a year ago in the amount of $1,251,000 was the largest contributor to the decrease we referenced above. Purchase of the hangar F3 this time last year dropped airport contingency $22,500. IT other contractual was down $168,500 for the renewal of the citywide financial software maintenance a year ago, and new equipment reserve fell at $144,000 for the purchase of golf course mowers and fire rescue tools this time last year. Sales tax wasn't received from the state until March this year, but we made a period adjustment, so month-to-date general fund sales tax collections were at $1,029,720. That was an increase of $94,675, or 10% as compared to last year. Very excited about that. These are primarily collections from December, so locals must have had a good Christmas. Also, the last time the general fund sales tax topped $1 million for the month was in September of 2022. This 6-month average was up 3%. That's a year-over-year decrease of 0.5%. And county sales tax collections were at $1,121,275, a year-over-year increase of 11,000. Report of the top 10 quarter-to-date sales tax collections by classification was up $152,350, or 4%. Those top 10 represent 73% of the total now. Total par value of the U.S. Treasuries for February 28th was $2 million, with a weighted average yield to maturity of 4%. That's down 0.25% from a year ago. Total of the portfolio certificates of deposit on February 28th was $74.5 million, with a weighted average rate to maturity of 3.85. That's down 1%. Total balance of the money market was $3,737,499, with a current weighted average yield of 3.59, down 0.2 from a year ago. Total investments were up $7,460,740.
I'll move that we approve the February 2026 financial report.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Musil, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Questions or comments for Kim on the financial report?
Looks good.
Nice number.
We have good numbers for March, too. So
Good.
That's awesome.
Anything from you, David, on the financials? Nope. Okay. we will move on to citizen comments for non-agenda.
Mayor?
Oh,
could you
I'm
take
sorry,
a
yeah,
vote-
we have to vote.
Take a vote on that, please.
Yep, sorry. All of those in favor of approving the financial statement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. 4-0.
4. Is he on?
Are you there, David?
I'm gonna text him. He texted me, he said he's on, but
Okay.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
audio must be an issue.
Okay. All right. Citizen comments for non-agenda items. If anybody from the public would like to speak now. Welcome, welcome. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Marley Little. I'm the Community Engagement Intern at Nex-Tech. And today I just wanted to present some of the projects I've been working on so that you might get a glimpse of how Nex-Tech supports the community.
Excuse me, could you state your name again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Marley Little. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I passed out a few handouts here. One of them is a map of Nex-Tech's service area. They serve more than 11,000 square miles of Northwest Kansas, and 8,000 miles of that is broadband, fiber, high-speed fiber. That's internet that's buried underground, which is really important. It's protected from the weather. I'm from Greensburg, Kansas, so if you know anything about Greensburg, that's important. And then on the back side of that is a little graphic that kind of describes the different departments within Nex-Tech. They're not just an internet company. They're not just cell phones. They have a lot of different departments. One that I thought was interesting was the video production and photography. I didn't know that they did that. And then community engagement is on there. They do sponsorships, scholarships, different events, things like that. A little more background on me. I'm a sophomore at Fort Hays State University. I'm studying finance. Well, as a finance student working at Nex-Tech, I wanted to kind of develop my professional skills before I go into the workforce. And I feel like I've learned some pretty valuable things in my 2 months that I've been here so far. And then I also assist the community engagement department with special projects. I work with Friday. He's the community engagement specialist at Nex-Tech. And then this is just an overview of some of the projects I'll be talking about today. So also one of the handouts is the Rural Insights page. These are just some kind of impactful numbers about who Nex-Tech serves. You'll see on there they serve over 30 schools. To me, that's really important because technology education is really vital for our youth, in my opinion. And we can't educate our youth on how to use technology if we don't have the internet resources. So I think that's pretty interesting. The youth programs, Nex-Tech has the Next Generation Youth Program. That's what my internship is through, but they have a lot of different internships, and they do scholarships. They also have the Roundup for Youth program where customers can round up their monthly bill, and that goes towards their youth program. So it helps pay for my internship. It helps give scholarships. Pretty cool program. And then the revolving loan fund, in my own words, it's a way for business owners and entrepreneurs to apply for a loan so that they can grow their businesses. I've been able to work with this a little bit, just kind of reviewing numbers on applications. So as a finance student, that was really interesting. Some of my personal projects have been researching and writing for a blog. That's actually what the picture is. It's my sister on a computer at the library because Nex-Tech supports Fort Hays. My blog was over, my post was over how fiber technology supports Fort Hays State students. So that was kind of fun to use my own experience to write that. Communications and networking has been a big part of my job. Even today, this morning, I got to call some of the Kansas legislators in Topeka and schedule meetings for Friday to go and talk with them. And then community engagement events like this one I'm doing today. Also in April, I'm doing a presentation at Fort Hays State for their AI Institute. I'm going to be talking about how Nex-Tech has been utilizing AI. And then In February, I got to go to the ribbon cutting ceremony at the new tech building at Fort Hays Tech, and I got to see some of my friends there, which was pretty cool. And it's just cool to see how Nex-Tech supports students and the community. You can subscribe to our newsletter here. Hopefully I'll be able to work on that a little bit for the May edition. And then this is the contact information for the Community Engagement Department. Are there any questions for me?
I think so. Exciting stuff. Lots of
Yeah.
lot of good information to review.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thanks.
I'm just going to make this very quick, 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just wanted to highlight a few things you didn't really talk about as much. As many of you kind of know from my accent and my background, I wasn't born in this country. I'm not from Kansas. Through a series of fortunate events, I found my way to Hays, Kansas, working for Nex-Tech. And I can say, as someone who is from the outside, that Nex-Tech is simply a company that is trying to make a difference in the communities. And some of the initiatives you talked about, they are great, but talking about donations to the communities, I can begin to list various institutions and businesses, and not businesses now, causes that we kind of support financially. I can see Aubrey right there. Aubrey's helping us stream this live. We're kind of active in the community because we believe this is our home. Our CEO, Jimmy Todd, our CFO, Rhonda Goddard, and all of our leaders, they live in Northwest Kansas, rural Kansas. So this is not a company where the leaders live in DC or LA and New York. We're right here in Northwest Kansas serving. And then lastly, jobs we support in the area, 100 plus jobs just in the Hays and Victoria area. Think of how much that supports the local economy. I own a home in Hays, courtesy of my job that I have with Nex-Tech. And so just the ripple effect of the economics, how Nex-Tech is able to stimulate and support growth in the area, including Grow Hays. I can see Grow Hays here. We support Grow Hays and the Chamber in Hays. And so lastly, this Nex-Tech is a friend of the city of Hays. We're a friend of the people of Hays. And we're happy to just continue to do the good things we've always done in the past. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank you, Friday.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job, not just here locally, but their entire region that they touch. They've utilized this program that Friday runs very well. I mean, they've provided a lot of new small business starts. I mean, that's money right back into the Northwest Kansas economy that they're helping kind of bridge that gap and getting people, right into their businesses. So thank you guys for that. Appreciate it.
Friday,
Thanks
it was
for the
very
information.
fortunate for us, Friday, that all those circumstances brought you to Hays. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Are there any other citizen comments on non-agenda items? No? Okay. Next item we have is the consent agenda. Things on here, we have the Wild West Fest cereal malt beverage liquor license and the mayoral appointments for approval for the CVB Advisory Committee. The two applications we had currently serve, and they were happy to be a part of it and would like to continue their service. Both have done wonderful things, and I've heard nothing but good things about their service on that board.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Questions, comments on that? Okay, if not, I'll call for a vote on that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0. Did you hear anything back from David?
He said he had the wrong mic on, but it should be working now, but.
You there, Dave?
Hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. Okay, do you want to pass that, David?
Yes, I said aye.
Okay, perfect. All right, 5-0. Awesome. Next up, 2026 sanitary sewer cleaning and inspection award of bid, Mr. Crispin.
Good afternoon, Jeff Crispin, Director of Water Resources. Our department is continuing our annual program to clean and inspect sanitary sewer mains in the city. We received 7 bids for this project. The department plans to spend the full budgeted amount of $150,000, which includes light cleaning at minimum and where needed, medium and heavy cleaning, tap intrusions, root removal, small, medium, and large patches as necessary. The 2026 project area is in the northeastern part of the city, outlined in red. Area known as Section 4 on our plan, east of Vine, north of 22nd, a little bit north of 13th, and then the area is north of I-70 along Vine Street. Area was last cleaned in 2021. It's 118,000 linear feet and about 22.39 miles. This was also included in the agenda packet for this week at your request. This is the order of cleaning each year, what I continue to refer to as the plan. We're in Area 4 for 2026. You will see areas 1, 2, and 3 we've cleaned twice. And so once we get through Area 5, I think we're going to be around to our third round of these areas. Each area is 22 miles long, and as the city continues to grow, we add to that number and clean those areas. This is a picture of what a sewer jet truck looks in the camera van in the background. Problems that can be occurred or could be caused by lack of sewer cleaning include backups, manhole rehab or manhole overflows, public exposure to raw sewage, and regulatory fines. As they clean, a nozzle is pushed with a jet of water from one manhole to an upstream manhole. Then it's pulled back. That is considered one pass for light cleaning. All that material that's pulled out of that sewer is actually taken down to the wastewater treatment plant and disposed of there. Any additional passes, such as 2 to 4 passes, would be medium cleaning. It's an additional charge. 5+ passes, additional charge as well. And that's heavy cleaning. Video inspection is also required and part of the bid. Helps us provide early detection of flaws, and it allows us to make repairs. Could be made before a catastrophic failure. Typically, if we find an issue or the contractor finds an issue, they'll call our staff, we'll go out, take a look at it, and we work to make decisions on the spot. This is an example of something we've seen, and recently we've seen. It's where something might have been bored through, could be fiber, gas, could be numerous other utilities, could be bored through our sewer. The fiber contractor in this situation was contacted. They removed and fixed the issue at their cost and got our sewer line back in service. Another thing that we see is roots in our system. Although I mentioned at the work session, we're seeing less and less every year because of all the cleaning that we do. And so that's working out well for us, but we do see that going down every single year. Here are the results from the 2025 project. I've been asked before to bring this back, and so I'm going to try to continue to update you. Our southern area of Hayes, Section 3 that we were just in, they cut out 20 protruding traps this year, and the last time that we were in that area, they did 32. One patch was required this last year in 2025, and we did 6 in 2020. And that's the breakdown of the footages that were cleaned. It does not surprise me. As I mentioned last week, this is the downtown area. Whenever you're kind of closer to restaurants, you may have some grease buildup that you have to remove. So the numbers weren't surprising for 2025. And we came in right at 98 or 99.8% to budget. We spent basically right up to the budgeted amount. On January 27th, we issued the RFP, and on the 24th of February, we opened 7 bids, as you see on the screen. This is for light cleaning. The low bid for light cleaning was Dakota Municipal Solutions, LLC, for the $133,028.65. And we deem that to be a competitive bid. We're happy with it, and we know that that contractor, if you should award it, will do a good job for us. So for financial consideration, as I previously mentioned, our department plans to spend the full budgeted amount of $150,000. And as I mentioned at the work session, we will be taking a look at 2027 and beyond based on historical costs to see what we need to do in the future, maybe raise that up a little bit to cover all the costs that we need. So tonight you have these 3 options. Accept a proposal with a lot of words, provide us alternate direction, or do nothing. And this is that action I would request.
I move to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Dakota Municipal Solutions to perform light cleaning and video inspection of 118,198.53 linear feet of sanitary sewer at a price of $133,028.65 with an additional $16,971.35 authorized for medium and heavy cleaning, tap intrusion, and root removal and patching as needed, for a total amount not to exceed $150,000 to be funded from the repairs and maintenance line item in the water reclamation and reuse budget.
Second. I'll take the easy part.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any questions or comments for Jeff?
Jeff,
Go ahead.
do you anticipate this being the same as it was last time, better?
Probably the same, but it is very much needed. So if you went
Right.
10 years without doing any cleaning, those issues start to creep up. So it's important to continue it, but it's hard. I mean, I can assume what it'll be like, but
Right.
I just think of any other calls or any other development in that area, and I don't think we're going to have too many issues with that area. It's also an area that we haven't had a lot of patching, lining, and other requirements.
Thank you.
Are you aware of many communities that do this on an annual basis, like we do? Do most communities do this?
No, a few communities I know of, well, larger communities typically would. I know that Garden City, my peer, I talk to him all the time about this. They are not on a regular cleaning rotation like we are. And
Do they find they have more issues?
Huh?
Do they have more
Yeah.
issues?
And one thing that I failed to mention at the work session and tonight, talking to staff that's been with us for a lot longer than I have, remember the days of constant emergency calls and things before we did this. I think maybe city manager might be able to attest to that from his history. So it's helping a lot.
And we've been doing it how many years?
2014 was our first run at it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? David, do you have any questions on there?
No, I do not.
Okay. No, I think this is a wonderful program that we continue to do. You'll never convince me that preventative maintenance is a bad thing. The longer you maintain everything that you have, make sure that we're providing, those kinds of tap intrusions and root ball issues to prevent emergency repairs and catastrophic failures within the system, I think is definitely money well spent. And I appreciate that we have enough bid process through there. I mean, 7 bids is a great opportunity to identify those. So that's a wonderful program. I appreciate your staff looking at that, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Additional questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, next up, we have 2026 centrifuge 10,000-hour maintenance awarded bid, Jeff Crispin.
The Department of Water Resources recently obtained a quote to perform recommended 10,000-hour maintenance to the centrifuge that's at our facility from Environmental Process Equipment Company, or EPEC. They are a sole source and authorized service company for our centrifuge. The quote for service plus shipping and parts is under the budget of $50,000. The water reclamation and reuse facility is located in the southeastern portion of town, Highway 40 and General Custer. The centrifuge is located within our solids handling building in the northeastern part of the facility, or the yard, and it's circled in yellow. Extremely important piece of equipment, spins liquid sludge that is wasted from the digester and no longer needed as part of our treatment process. The centrifuge spins the liquid sludge and removes as much liquid as we possibly can, creating cake that is sent out to our drying beds to set until applied to agricultural fields. If this centrifuge breaks or is down for an extended amount of time, solids within our facility back up within our facility, that liquid train of flowing through the property. The only way to remove the wasted material would be for us to hire a third party to haul off the liquid and apply that to fields. And that was what we did before 2017 to 19 when we did the upgrade. And this was and is not the most efficient as our current process. On the left, I left that ladder. You can see it's a 6-foot ladder. You can see how high that equipment's off the ground and kind of how big that equipment is. The right photo is the backside of the equipment. It shows, that arrow shows how the screw that's moving the material outside the building. It has approximately 13,000 hours on it, and as I mentioned at the work session, after 7 years of installation, that's just doing averages, 1,857 hours per year equals approximately 5 hours per day runtime for that piece of equipment. On the left, you can see where that material is deposited outside of the building. When the area is full, we scoop it up from there, we take it over and we put it in the drying beds, and on the right, you can see where they're taking the backhoe, loading it on our spreader truck that we got a few years ago, thank you, and then we take that out to the fields and we deposit that on fields, and it's all regulatory process. KDHE is involved. There is a process that Clayton and his staff have to follow to make sure that we're monitoring that project. Proper operation and maintenance of the centrifuge is essential for that equipment, the plant, and our biosolids handling system. While we regularly do, bless you, preventative maintenance on all equipment in the plant, it's necessary for an authorized service representative to come out and do this maintenance for us. Couple updates from last week's questions. We asked the rep, how long should you expect the centrifuge to last? And his response by going back to the manufacturer was, if you're doing 10,000 hour maintenance, you're probably going to get 20 plus years out of this equipment, could be even longer. So here we are 9 years past. I know we're a little bit past that 10,000 hours, but we should come back in another 10,000 hours and have to do this again, and we will budget so accordingly in the future to do this maintenance.
What does a brand new machine cost?
It's around $1 million. When we looked at this project and all the systems that are in there, it's quite extensive, so it is very expensive and important to maintain.
Yeah.
We should expect 2 to 3 days of downtime. Clayton mentioned that at the work session, and he was correct. It is 2 to 3 days, and that's how long it should take. And then I was asked, how long will parts take to get? And I contacted him as well and said, if this is approved tonight and we move forward, we get signatures, probably 2 to 3 weeks to source them from Germany to get them over here. So I believe those were most of the questions that were asked of last week in addition. So as a reminder, it's approximately $1,400 under budget of $50,000, so that's a good thing. These are the 3 options for your consideration, and this is the action I would request.
I move we authorize the city manager to sign a contract with EPEC to perform 10,000 hour maintenance of the centrifuge at a price of $48,572.28 to be funded from the projects line item in the water reclamation and reuse budget.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments for Jeff?
Jeff, I know he told you the lifespan 20 plus years with maintenance. Did he happen to say if we chose to have the machinery without doing maintenance every 10,000 hours?
I didn't ask that, but
Sure.
I will tell you that we have seen with that equipment already that you get to that end of that 10,000 hours or in that window, you start to see some wear and tear.
Sure.
And so it is time to get that accomplished, and we want to continue that so we can maintain that piece of equipment. So I wouldn't want to continue without doing this.
No, I agree. I was just curious, so
Yeah.
thank you.
And they're the only company that's certified to handle this specific equipment.
Yes, EPEC is the rep for this piece of equipment. GEA Westphalia, I believe is the name, out of Germany. And this is not just the only piece of equipment. A lot of wastewater treatment plants that are being designed that have this type of equipment, it comes directly from them. Because it's a good piece of equipment. It runs great. It's just that after 10,000 hours, it needs maintenance.
Yes. And this is something that they come down and do themselves. This
Yeah.
isn't, they give us the parts to our
Nope,
people.
nope, the rep's out of Wichita, and he said it's just scheduling it, getting the parts, getting out here, and then getting it done.
Additional questions for Jeff? David, any questions for you?
No.
Okay. All right. Then I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next up, we have the 2024 International Fire Code adoption. Mr. Rohr.
Good afternoon, Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. So the next 3 items on your agenda, while they are separate items and will require separate actions, are kind of rolled into one presentation. We do that for ease of review. We kind of group these together this way, and also ease of approval on your end as well. So we're going to talk about 3 different codes: the 24 International Fire Code, the 24 International Property Maintenance Code, and the 2023 National Electrical Code. So for those that don't know, the International Code Council, which would be the 2 of the codes we're looking at, the IFC Fire Code and the PMC, the Property Maintenance Code, are drafted every 3 years. You may recall we were before you in 2025 to adopt the IBC, or the Building Code, and the International Residential Code. And so now we've moved on to some of the additional codes. Currently, we are under the 2015 editions of the IFC and the IPMC and the 2014 edition of the NEC. Those were all adopted in 2017. And as is typical, we don't adopt code every 3 years when the new code editions come out. We don't see the need to do that always. We try to stretch them as long as we can, as long as they're working for staff, contractors, developers, designers. We try to keep them if possible. But now we reach the time, for various reasons, we want to update those codes. We do intend on, after these move through the course here, come back to you at some point in the future, probably later this year, and consider adoption of the updated plumbing and mechanical codes as well. So there's various reasons for adoption of new codes. Obviously, with every code cycle, there seems to be increased codes for fire and life safety. That is really the underlying reason for codes, is fire and life safety. There's other reasons such as energy codes and things like that, but our focus is the fire and life safety reasons. Another primary reason is for increased technology and construction type developments that have occurred since previous code adoption. So we want to allow designers and contractors to utilize the best things that are out there, the newest things. So, and then lastly, at the bottom bullet point there, if we send our inspection staff to training now, they can't get trained under the 2015 international codes or the 2014 national electrical codes anymore. It's just not offered anymore. So we want to be able to send them off and have training for the newest codes available, not just for staff, but for contractors as well. So as we did last year when we did the IBC and IRC, we developed a process to make this as easy as possible. Changing codes is never a popular thing for staff or for contractors or anyone that uses them. So we think we found a way to make it simple and make it acceptable to everyone involved. So the first thing we did, as we did last year, with these three codes here, we developed a code committee of licensed contractors who met with staff several times, looked at the code of the new codes, looked at and talked about code amendments. And then the code committee that was selected along with staff then had a larger public open house meeting for the local licensed contractors, talk about the new codes and proposed amendments. As we mentioned last week, we fed them lunch, so we get a lot of people there, but we had a lot of good feedback as well. So most, if not all, the amendments that were proposed for adoption came out of this focus group that reviewed the codes. So here, just quickly, here's the primary group that was on the committee. Most of them, and even the bottom one, even though the title doesn't state, are electrical contractors. The focus of the contractor portion of these codes was the National Electrical Code. The IPMC is generally used by staff for property maintenance. IFC is primarily used for designers, and most of what you adopted in the IBC last year is a mirror image to the IFC codes that we're adopting now. They pretty much, they're about 80% word for word in those two documents. So, just a few of the benefits of what we're doing. I mentioned the advanced systems and technology that new code allows. Since 2017, when we adopted the 2015 codes, you can imagine in the last 10, 12 years, the different technology upgrades that have happened out there in the industry. I mentioned battery storage systems and solar systems. We see a lot of that now. However, the older codes don't address those sort of things, but contractors are installing them. So we focus this time on proposing amendments that allow contractors to continue current practices. So if they're doing something locally here that's working for them, we try to amend the code that allows them to keep doing those sort of things as they've, in most cases, done for years. And then I already mentioned the education and training component. So here's just a couple examples from each of the codes of some of the amendments that we've proposed along with the committee. The top one there has to do with the IFC, and really all that amendment saying is the IFC itself has a different frequency of tornado drills than what the state of Kansas requires. We allow businesses and other schools not to match what the state of Kansas requirements are, so we amended that, just say, as long as you're doing it per the state of Kansas laws, that's no issue. Excuse me. The second one had to do with fire alarm activations. The code language was what we felt was a little bit vague. We wanted to make sure that all alarm activations were immediately sent to local dispatch. They can go to other places as well, such as the headquarters of a business, but we definitely want it to be sent to local dispatch without delay. There were a couple noted here in the NEC, the electrical code. The first one there in the NEC, the third bullet point, has to do with existing structures. So it's very difficult in some cases. If you have a house that might be 40, 50, 70 years old, some of the new technology with arc fault circuit interrupters just doesn't function. It can be very difficult to incorporate that into an older wiring system. And so we created some exceptions in there that would allow exemptions from some of the AFCI requirements. And again, this isn't new. We've been following this for a while. We update it where possible, but sometimes it's not possible without spending thousands and thousands of dollars, and we don't want to place that burden on property owners. And then the fourth one there, for over 30 years, we've required an exterior disconnect. So that's a means for emergency personnel or anyone to actually terminate an electrical service from the outside of a structure without having to go inside of a structure to do so. So purely is for safety reasons. And then the bottom one there had to do with, it's out of the property maintenance code and had to do with the community storm shelters. We do not want to we don't want to put in place any retroactive requirements on any existing community shelters. So any new storm shelters that are community type of shelters will be built to new code, but if there's any existing, they can maintain their existing code on which they were built. So your options here would be to adopt these three codes as requested and as amended in the ordinances in your packet, or you could choose not to adopt. We could stay under the old codes. There's no law saying we can't, but we choose to update when possible. And these would be the three separate actions required should you decide to do so. Any questions?
So do we just need to do, say,
One at a time.
One at a time, okay, perfect, thank you.
I'll move that we approve ordinance number 4093, adopting the 2024 International Fire Code with amendments as further described within the adopting ordinance.
Second.
Motion and a second on ordinance number 4093. Questions or comments on that specific one?
The only thing I will say is I really appreciate you involving the local contractors and getting their input. I think that's very important instead of just saying this is how it is. So thank you for doing that.
Sure.
David, anything on that one?
No.
Okay. Then I will call for a vote on that one. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that one passes 5-0. Next one.
I'll move approval of the ordinance number 4094, adopting the 2024 International Property Maintenance Code with amendments as further described within the adopting ordinance.
Second.
Motion and a second on the table. Any additional questions or comments? Anything from you, David, on that one? No. Okay. If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0.
I move approval of ordinance number 4095, adopting the 2023 National Electrical Code with amendments as further described within the adopting ordinance.
Second.
Motion and a second on the table. Questions, comments on this one? David, on this one?
No.
Okay. I'll call for a vote on that one. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Jesse, for those. I appreciate that. Okay, next up, we have the Unified Development Code UDC changes for carports.
Okay, this one a little bit different. We're also talking about another code, but this is our Unified Development Code, or UDC, which is our code for zoning and subdivision regulations. So this particular change we're talking about has to do specifically with carports, so a very little small part of the UDC. So currently, carports are considered an accessory building, just like any other accessory building, such as a garden shed, a detached garage, a pool house, anything like that. And therefore, they have to follow the same setbacks as any of those accessory buildings would be required to follow. So in most cases, that means 5 foot from the side yard, 5 foot from the rear yard, and 5 foot from any other structure. However, it's very frequent that cases like this come before the Board of Zoning Appeals for a reduction in setback. They're asking for a variance for reductions less than the 5 feet. And so we thought, as we do from time to time, we bring these items to you because what's happening at the Board of Zoning, they're coming forward and they're almost always getting approved. So we figured if they're always going to get approved, let's try to write it into the rule, and it avoids the process for the property owner to go through that Board of Zoning appeals process. So staff did present this topic at the December 2025 and the January 2026 Planning Commission. And there's a lot of discussion. Here's kind of what some of that discussion evolved to. So the first thing we decided we had to do was define carport. We currently don't have a definition of carport in the UDC. So one of the changes being requested would be to include a definition. So it's simply a roof structure attached or not that's designed for the shelter of, or storage of motor vehicles. And the important part of it is shall be open on at least 2 sides. So if it's not open on at least 2 sides, if it's closed on 3 sides, it's now no longer a carport. It would fall under the setbacks for other accessory structures. So that was an important distinction that the Planning Commission set forth in dealing with carports. And most of the cases coming before the Board of Zoning met that open on 2-side criteria. And then there's additional language that talks about what open means. So it doesn't mean it has to be 100% closed. Someone mentioned, if there's sometimes you'll see carports that might have a 2 or 3 foot portion down from the top to kind of enclose the top portion. That can still be done under this definition. So as with any change, there's pros and cons. Some of the pros that were talked about for the reduction of setbacks for carports, of course, it allows property owners to utilize their property to its fullest and best use, using that space that they might not be able to use otherwise. I mentioned already it does reflect the approach that's been followed by the Board of Zoning as these cases have come before them over the years. And of course, typically carports of this type, whether they're pre-manufactured type or even site-built, are generally more cost-effective than other structures. Some of the cons that were discussed at the Planning Commission, if it's very close to the side property line, maintenance could be a little more difficult on the side that's next to a property. Most open carports like this require very little, if any, maintenance typically. Drainage risks were brought up. Distances closer than 3 foot were discussed. And then we talked about gutter systems and things like that, and they decided let's make it 3 foot, and then it doesn't matter if there's a gutter or not because the water's not going to be draining directly onto a neighboring property. And then, as with anything you can put beside a property line, the closer you get it, there's increased fire separation concerns or fire risk. It's hard to quantify that. You can put almost anything beside on your side property now. You can park an RV on your property line. You can do different things that generally could increase the fire risk, but it wasn't enough of a concern in this case with the 3 foot setback to not move forward. So I've got a couple examples of some carports here. These two happen to be the pre-manufactured type. Here's a couple that were site-built, attached to the homes. You can see all these examples are open on at least 2 sides, so they meet the definition of that we're recommending.
So Jesse, go back,
Yes.
back there for a second. So the one on the left, that is right on the property line, correct?
It appears to, we don't know exactly where the property line, it would appear to me that that one is directly on the property line.
And that's okay?
It'd be grandfathered.
It was either put there before we had the current regulations, or it had a variance from the Board of Zoning at some point in the past. That did have a variance, so under strict regulation, that would not meet the criteria for this change, so.
So when you say it had a variance, why would they, I'm just asking because, that seems very close. Why would they give a variance to something like that?
I would speculate that, as happens from time to time, especially with carports, the structure itself was probably up. It was noticed, they came and applied. At least according to the, as staff, we don't vote, we don't make those decisions. The Board of Zoning members felt, based on the 5 criteria required to be reviewed by state statute for any variance case, they felt it met that criteria and therefore approved the variance. So now I will say, since we're talking about variances, carport requests closer than 3 foot, if you were to approve this change, could still go to the Board of Zoning for a variance. We're hoping to reduce the number of cases that do so. The Board of Zoning might be a little more reluctant to issue variances unless the property owner can show hardship, which is one of the 5 criteria required by state law.
That particular one, I had a lot of questions about as well, and it makes sense to me the way they did it, because the house must be right on the setback, must be exactly there, because to get enough room for a vehicle in there, it has to be that big. Otherwise, it absolutely wouldn't fit. I'm surprised that the neighbor hasn't complained.
Right. And I'd say in more cases than not, we get, at the Board of Zoning cases, there's a public hearing required for variances. Neighboring properties are required to be notified by city staff. And in more cases than not, those property owners are either present at the meeting or have submitted written
Good.
either support or not support. But we probably see more support. I mean, most people are supporting their neighbors and what they're doing. That particular one does have a gutter on the side there. I'm guessing under the variance conditions, it was one of the conditions required so that the water wasn't draining directly onto the neighboring property. But in more cases, I'd say I guess 80 to 85% of the cases, neighbors are supporting other neighbors' variance.
Well, I hope we do a lot of notification on the new zoning, because I don't want to, I hope they stop building them and then have to say, mea culpa, I didn't know I was not supposed to do this.
Right, and those are tough cases for the Board of Zoning members.
Yeah.
It's hard not to get wrapped up into the, it's already there, what should I do kind of thing. So, but we've had a couple relocated in the past. We've had some that had to been moved or removed in certain cases. But like I say, this one was one of the ones that did get granted. So.
Jesse, that one on the right, it's got support beams in there, is that right? Or is that like a sliding door?
It's open. Those are just beams. They're on the right side.
Okay.
On the right side of it. So there's columns there that are supporting the structure itself.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And then here's just a couple more examples for one of the important things to note here, as well as some of the others, is one of the allowances in the UDC amendments being proposed is that it would be allowed to butt up to an existing structure. That's important in a lot of these cases. Otherwise, they couldn't fit either because of space limitations on side yards. So
But that's a closed side then.
that in that case would be considered a closed side. So it would have to be open on 2 sides under the new criteria to that would make that side considered closed.
Right.
So it sounds like a lot of change, but what you can see here in the red, so this is a snip directly out of that section of the UDC, and what's in red would make the changes effective that we've been talking about. So it would allow it within 3 foot of the interior property line, and then the no separation required there at the very bottom. And then the only other change would be this one, would be adding the definition of carport to the definition section of the UDC. So those changes, this definition and these 2 in red here, would basically make the changes effective that we have been discussing. So your options with this, and these are options that are afforded to you by state statute as a zoning regulation change. So you could approve as submitted and recommended by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did conduct a hearing on February 16th of this year and did recommend by a vote of 4-0 to move this forward. Your second option would be to send it back to the Planning Commission. If you do, you have to spell out the specific basis for doing so and what you'd like further reviewed, or you could not approve the UDC changes. This would be the action requested, should you choose.
I'll move to adopt ordinance number 4096, approving the UDC changes for the installation of carports as presented within the adopting ordinance.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions, additional questions or comments for Jesse?
Jesse, I just have one question. You mentioned people are coming, asking for variances in the setback. Over the past year, how many of those variances have been denied?
We see more approval than denial.
Okay.
And part of that is because as staff, we've seen enough cases over the last 20-plus years. We kind of get a good sense of what might get approved. We won't deny anyone a chance to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Sure.
But we try to give them recommendations on what may or may not get approved. There's sometimes we don't feel one will get approved and it does, and there's sometimes we think it will and it won't. So again, we try to work with people in advance. So some of the ones that And some people are okay if we can tell them, we just don't feel there's a chance at all. You can still go if you want. They'll back off and maybe change their plan or come up with something different. But overall, I'd say we see more approvals than denial.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
I think one of the great things you do is identifying, longer processes for property owners trying to get something done. And instead of just saying, oh, well, we'll just keep letting them go through the process forever because that's just what we do. You actually adjust it to, hey, this makes more sense for the property owner, reduces a step they have to take, do what they have to do, get it done. So I appreciate the clarification on that and working alongside the property owners and to making sure that's taken care of appropriately and not putting them in a position where they have to tear something down or adjust something because it doesn't fit their specific scenario.
Sure.
You guys do this a lot, bringing us UDC changes. If it doesn't work, you're not going to keep doing it. You bring us changes that you have identified that work specifically for us or meet less strict codes or whatever. I don't think you've brought any that I've been on that have been more strict.
No, we try not to do that, whether it's the building codes or the UDC codes, and we're already working on another list to bring to you. So.
Good.
I have one more question, Jesse, and it may be a dumb question, and I apologize. When a property gets listed that has one that's outside of the ordinance, during the inspection process, is that noted during the sale process, and has it ever changed, or is that grandfathered forward in that sale?
We typically don't hear about those. Once in a while we will. We don't get involved in like your typical home inspection that someone might do as part of a sale transaction on a home.
But wouldn't that
basically,
be part of that inspection? Maybe not.
They're usually looking
The
at
people that know are shaking their heads at me.
physical structures, things like that, right. Most
Okay.
often not. A lot of times they won't even consider what the zoning is. They'll disclose things such as floodplain, but setbacks, things like that,
Okay, thank
I'm guessing
you.
usually aren't. So.
You can probably just call Curtis and say, hey, does my property have any variances on it?
We do get questions like that from time to time. And a lot of things are just considered, by you to see, they're considered legally non-conforming, which is just better than non-conforming, because legally non-conforming, yeah, it does meet today's code, but it's there legally, so.
Thanks.
David, anything from you?
No.
Okay. If not, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right. Number 12, resolution evidencing an intent to issue industrial revenue bonds Chick-fil-A project. Jared.
Jared Kuckelman, Assistant City Manager. So today we are discussing a resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds, or IRBs, for Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A has submitted an incentive application for their project to construct a new restaurant facility at 3404 Vine Street. The project will involve constructing the fast food restaurant as well as adding parking and making internal site improvements. They are seeking an IRB sales tax exemption to help with the construction costs on the project. They've been working on the process of developing here in Hayes for some time now, and over that time, their anticipated construction costs have gone up, and some of that was coming from the unique challenges that they did experience at the site where they're locating at, so through that demolition process. So that is what led to them making this request. So we're probably pretty familiar with where the site for this project is at, but just in case, the star here shows where in Hayes we're talking about. And this image does show the location for the project between 37th and 33rd Streets off of Vine. The aerial image here does show the previous building located at this site, but that building was torn down and no longer exists. So this image is a rendering of what the Chick-fil-A location is proposed to look like here in Hayes. To give a bit of a better idea of what that might look like in reality, this is an image of the Chick-fil-A location in Topeka on South Topeka Boulevard. This location opened around late 2024, and it's kind of an example of what a lot of the newer Chick-fil-A locations kind of look like. So maybe not something exactly like this, but probably something kind of similar. So this image shows the proposed site layout. So the plan is to have, maybe not, but the plan is for the restaurant to be close to Vine Street. with the drive-through entrance located all the way there at the very back. And so then that would give plenty of stacking room in the drive-through to accommodate some of the peak traffic periods. And there is parking down there towards the bottom of the property, which would be open, but kind of more used by the employees likely. The developer is seeking industrial revenue bonds, or IRBs, for the purposes of this project. IRBs are a kind of unique bond issuance, which are meant to provide at least one of two incentives: a property tax abatement and or a sales tax exemption on construction materials. And in this case, the project is not eligible for a property tax exemption, and they're only seeking the sales tax exemption. IRBs do not affect the city's debt limit or rating, do not require taxpayer commitment, and the developer is solely responsible for the payment obligations. The potential benefit of the IRBs for this particular developer is estimated to be about $66,000 for the city's portion of sales tax. At this stage in the process for IRBs, a resolution of intent only states the city's intention to issue IRBs in order to grant the developer that sales tax exemption certificate. The actual bonds are not issued until the project reaches substantial completion. And if the bonds were for some reason not issued, in any case, then it would be up to the developer to pay back any of those exempted sales tax payments. So the total investment by the developer for this project is estimated to be about $6.2 million, which does include the land costs. The developer has also estimated that the annual retail sales of the restaurant would be $5.5 million, which would be immediately sales tax generating upon opening. So for an IRB, there's no general obligation or special obligation bonds issued, as the city is only the conduit issuer here, and the payment obligations are all on the developer. And then if you're still curious from last week about how many jobs they'll have, the estimated total is about a max of 70, not 14.
Sorry, Jared.
So they'll have more than just 14, and both full-time and part-time employees. So these are the options before you today. And then this will be the action requested.
I move we adopt, go ahead, Elena.
Okay. I move to adopt resolution number 2026-004, evidencing an intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for the Chick-fil-A Inc. project.
I second it.
Motion and a second on the table. Questions or comments for Jared?
Kind of talked it through, I
Yeah.
think.
I'm excited for the project.
Because I know you have it, how much revenue is generated in sales tax?
So for that, the city's current sales tax rate, the 5.5 million would generate $123,750 for the city in sales taxes each year. And I will say 5.5 million comes from the developer. They tend to use a low or less optimistic take on this to be as realistic as possible. So it could come in higher than that.
Thank you.
And I know, excuse me, talking with them, I know there had been concerns, of traffic flow and maybe the additional entrance or exit on the backside that would connect to the Hobby Lobby parking lot, which technically isn't up to us. That'd be between two private individuals, which I don't think they're opposed to. And I know that they have reached out and asked because just from the conversations that have been generated by this project, I'm assuming it's probably going to back up a lot of traffic along that area. They have asked that they want to be involved in some kind of help with that by partnering with Public Works and PD and making sure that things are moving appropriately so no one's getting backed up. I know if I was still working at McDonald's like I was, I would be super excited for some spillover traffic. They have a special place in my heart, McDonald's does. It's
Seven Brews had, I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but
no.
Seven Brews had big stack-ups when they first opened, all the way down. And interestingly, so did Triaki. When they reopened, they had stack-ups going up and down. And I'll make my case again for roundabouts. I think the roundabouts are going to make a big difference in their in and out. which is why we wanted roundabouts in the first place. But this, I don't think this is anything new for Chick-fil-A, and their willingness to work with everybody, I think, is stellar. And I think that's the kind of retail operation they are.
Well, and their process for selecting locations is super interesting. I know I had a chance to meet with the potential franchisee or people. They're wonderful. I mean, a part of Chick-fil-A's requirements is what they call the coop, I guess, is where anybody who wants to be a part of a new Chick-fil-A goes into this thing called the coop, and they say, hey, we're going to look at opening a location in Hays, Kansas. Who wants to go to Hays, Kansas? And then they have people apply, they have to interview, they have to come out to the community and like talk to people and ask them, see if that's something that they want to be involved in, because I guess they require them to like be involved in the community. They can't just come in and not be a part of it. They have to come in and, you know, be a part of the community. And the people that we met with were wonderful, asking how they can help with the schools and where their kids can go. And they asked about different churches around the area and stuff like that. I mean, they were wonderful people. So it's exciting. And I like the process of IRBs of the onus is on them. They have to perform or it doesn't work. And it's something that is utilized a lot around the entire state, around the entire country for businesses to come in and hopefully, you know, make it so that they can actually make things work. I know there's a bunch of smaller businesses that I work with in my day job that are utilizing IRBs, but because if they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to compete. So it's wonderful that they're actually doing this appropriately. I know they've been looking at it for years. So for something to finally come up, work, and be a part of that renaissance of North Vine, that's super exciting. I'm excited to see what they do within our community. And 70 jobs is a lot of jobs. I hope we continue to pull people into the community to fill those jobs and provide some competition. I mean, competition is going to drive up wages, drive people to fill those positions. I mean, that's what we need. So if I'm any one of those fast food restaurants over there, I'm going to be super excited because now that's going to bring a lot more people to my area. And not everybody enjoys Chick-fil-A, so they're going to come to me if I'm spillover. So it might hurt them for a little bit in the beginning, but more competition is better than nothing.
I would agree.
David, did you want to say something?
I would like
Yeah,
to.
absolutely.
David Koschel. I'm not against incentives across the board. There are projects that make sense. But we need to be honest about what we're doing here. Over just the last year, we've already redirected or foregoing roughly $400,000 annually in tax revenue on a handful of projects. And now we're considering adding to that for a company like Chick-fil-A, a national chain with a proven model, strong margins, and a track record of expanding into markets like ours without needing subsidies. So the real question isn't, can we do this? It's, should we? Because every time we approve incentives like this, we're picking winners. We're asking local businesses to compete at full tax burden while new competitors come in with reduced risk. That's not a free market, that's selective advantage. And if we're going to do that, we owe it to the public to clearly prove the but-for case. Because I don't think anyone in this room actually believes Chick-fil-A wouldn't come to Hays without the incentives. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anybody else wish to speak?
Ask David.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. David V., any comments or questions for you?
No?
Okay. Anything else from anybody else? Okay. Then I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Jared.
All right.
Thank you for increasing our jobs, too. Appreciate that.
All right. Next up, we got progress. Colin.
Good afternoon, I'll still say. Colin Belzer, Deputy City Manager. So stormwater staff did operate several floodgates, as is typically done twice a year, every year. This helps to make sure the gates are in good operating order in the event they ever needed to be used during a flooding event. We all know World Water Day Fun Fest happened, so in addition to staff from other departments, stormwater and solid waste divisions did participate. Approximately 250 participants came through the event. Cody Street, 91 yards of concrete was used by the service division to repair some failed pavement. And then service division employees repaired the rough alley just north of the Arc in downtown Hayes.
That's very good. That was in bad shape.
Really the guys. Really the guys.
There were big enough holes to eat my car.
Fire Chief Ryan Higgins was a guest presenter for a joint workshop hosted by the Kansas Forest Service and K-State Research and Extension. Chief Higgins spoke on how to prepare your farm and ranch in the event of a wildfire and provided tips on how to prepare to evacuate. Firefighters also attended the State Capital Area Association hands-on training at Topeka, including forcible entry and gaining access to burning structure training.
That doesn't look fun.
There's a smaller hole at the training center that we have at the city that.
Pass. God bless him.
Yeah.
Not for me.
No more McDonald's.
Yeah, no.
Sports complex, 2 drainage troughs were installed in the southwest quad to address the drainage issues.
Nice.
And then 4 slab extensions were installed in the southwest quad behind bleachers for better stormwater and added room.
Thank you.
And a basketball court was installed next to the Women Who Lead as part of the Phase 1 park improvement plan. The next thing that'll happen soon is lines will be painted on the court. Staff also added playground mulch in the parks to ensure proper depth of the fall zone was maintained. And then police, we had a new officer, Garrett Millage. He completed his basic training on February 27th.
How old is he?
I'll find out for you.
I don't know. Yeah,
That's true. I don't know if we can ask. Right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's an HR question.
I'm going to go with a Gen Zer.
Mason, that's telling you you are starting to get older.
I know. I can feel it in my bones.
You're not even
He's
close.
old enough. How about that?
Old enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we appreciate him.
What a political answer.
Our SSRT team did do a practice, and this shows them covering a hallway during a training while a role player was taken into custody. Water Resources, 2 of our employees attended the trenching and shoring and confined space training at KMU Training Center in McPherson. And then Holly Dickman spoke to 2 Fort Hays ag classes about water conservation and promoted the poster contest, which we appreciate the volunteers who took time to go judge around 540 entries for the water poster contest. And the theme was water, it's important.
Everybody should do that once.
Yes.
It is so much fun, but it's so hard to choose.
Obviously, Water Resources was at World Water Day Fun Fest as well, as K-State also came out, Watershed Extension to help with that, and ambassadors assisted in educating the public. On February 25th, Commercial Sign updated the CVB's Vine Street marquee sign with a new video messaging system and new panels. The previous video board had lasted many years and was past its expected lifespan and no longer operable. Melissa Dixon assisted the Hayes Regional Airport with a prize drawing at the Fort Hays State home basketball game. So in lieu of the Pack Your Bags promotion, Fort Hays State Athletics actually helped the airport get in front of every home game with a Hayes Regional Airport paper airplane race. And then at the end of the year, they did a drawing from all the winners, and Alyssa Romy won 2 SkyWest vouchers for round-trip tickets to Denver. CVB staff hosted a hospitality suite for coaches and administrators during the recent state wrestling. Approximately 850 meals and 22 dozen donuts were served over the weekend, and we did get plenty of compliments of what a great hospitality suite we run. On March 20th, CVB staff helped organize and distribute lunches for 17 Special Olympics team, and then Mayor Reuter also welcomed the athletes and their families during the opening ceremony. Tallgrass Phase 4 is underway. Site prep and dirt work are started and grades are being established. The project is slated for completion by November 1st. And then the new police station continues to take shape. Basement drywall is well underway. And then on the main level, framing and rough-ins is taking place. And I think we're going to try and coordinate something maybe in the near future to let you guys see that while it's in progress.
Like to have a tour.
The Exit 161 project has begun. M&D has started initial clearing and dirt work in preparation for infrastructure, and this is slated to be complete by October 1st. Any question? I'll find out the one for you.
That's okay.
Hey, Colin.
Yeah.
Real quick, I think you sent us an email. They've started the extension of the 41st Street sidewalks. Is that
They
correct?
didn't make it quite in time for this, but yeah, the multi-use path from 41st and Hall to Sternberg did begin this week.
Awesome.
Recently.
I had people questioning it, and they
Oh.
were very excited to hear what it was.
I get asked about that more than anything in this town. I'm not sure. A lot of people like to do exercise, I guess.
Great grant.
Yeah, it is.
Hello, Commissioners. Melissa Dixon with the Convention and Visitors Bureau with some things I want you to know that are going on in April. Easter Bunny photos downtown at Bella Luna. That's the children's shop inside Simply Charmed. The Kiwanis Egg Hunt will be Saturday, April 4th from 9 a.m. to probably 9:01. on campus.
So true.
And then Sternberg will have an evening event, an Easter extravaganza that evening at 6:30, and they always have a lot of great activities for kids. This show, Encore Series, I believe they are doing some fewer shows but higher quality. This one is three brothers whose dad was the biggest Beatles fan, and he passed away when they were just teenagers. This is their living tribute to him, and they take requests from the audience and build the set list right there. This is going to be next Friday, Beach Schmidt Performing Arts Center. Don't miss it. More great shows. TMP will present the Beverly Hillbillies musical, April 10th and 11th, 7 p.m., and then Sunday matinee at 2 p.m. Schmidt Sports Complex will host two tournaments. The first one, softball, we're expecting there's 26 teams signed up so far. And then for the April Mayhem, 62, I believe.
Wow.
Big news for the 60th annual Fort Hays State Rodeo. They're going to go the model of the Larks game and get a big sponsor and make it free for everybody.
Oh, great.
Wow.
So I'm so excited to see what that looks like with crowd and what that means for area families. That'll be the 16th through the 18th
Yeah, that's when we'll get rain.
out at Ellis County Fairgrounds.
They need
Never
to host
fails.
it every weekend then.
It's like clockwork.
The talented Fort Hays State Music and Theater will present the musical Into the Woods. Same weekend, so different activities for different folks. 7:30 show in the evenings, and then again 2 p.m. matinee on Sunday at the Felton Start Theater on campus. This is a special 5K for our office because Jana Jordan was the director that pretty much laid the foundation for our Convention and Visitors Bureau. All the proceeds from this 5K, you can walk or run, go directly to the Jana Jordan Memorial Tourism and Hospitality Scholarship. It's a pretty good deal. I think it's only $20. At the end, you get a big breakfast burrito from Union Catering, and the whole time the race is going on, our staff is pulling bib numbers for prizes that were donated by sponsors. So it's a good time. April 18th, the 58th annual Hays High Plains Barbershop Chapter will present Celebrate America in Harmony. They have two opportunities to see their show, 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock at Beach Schmidt Performing Arts Center. And this comedian, Zach Rushing at the Fox, he must have a good showing because they've added a show. Now there's an extra show, 3 o'clock and 6:30 on the 18th. Hays Community Theater folks will present The Shady Caper at Golden Acres, April 24th through 25th, and then again Sunday matinee at 2 p.m. That's at their theater location on 8th Street. And the Hays Arts Council will present their spring art walk on the 25th. So this one falls on a Saturday, so it'll be a longer event, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Keep in mind, they're going through an amazing renovation in their regular art center space, so they will have their exhibition moved up to the annex at 1010 Main Street. And then TMP's Ace Auction, April 25th, starts at 5 p.m. Theme is God shed his grace on thee. And this weekend, there's races at RPM Speedway. There's live music downtown. There's the first tournament at the sports complex. Tons of stuff to do. I hope you have a great weekend in Hayes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
All right. Commission inquiries and comments. David, we'll start with you.
Well, I've got, I guess, two things. First, just a reminder to all of our local entrepreneurs, if they're interested in IRBs or any incentives, anybody can apply for those things. It doesn't have to be some major corporation out there. So even our local folks, if they want those incentives, all they gotta do is apply. Second thing, weather's getting really nice. Everybody's going out to the parks. Just don't forget, we have Veterans Park out there close to Canterbury, kind of catty corner to the Casey's at the corner of 13th and Canterbury. It's a park that most people forget about. Go enjoy it, check out the tank, the big box car, and enjoy this weather.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
I
Mr.
would
Jacobs?
like to enjoy the weather. Tomorrow's not going to be nice, but then I think it's going to be nice for a while. I do this a couple times a year, and when we started talking about maintenance tonight, I thought of it again. I really like to compliment our staff. They're really stellar crews that take care of everything that we have. I don't know how many times we have trucks or other pieces of equipment that are supposed to have been done 5 years ago, and they're still keeping them going, and that happens every time we're asking for something. It's always carried over. I really appreciate them taking the time and prepare and doing maintenance the way they should on those to allow that to happen. It's just a great bunch of people that we have working for the city, and I like complimenting them. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Musil.
I just want to touch base. I know you and I went to a ribbon cutting today, and it's just really neat to see all the different stuff. You know, we got Chick-fil-A coming. We had a new bank open up, and, you hear people say, why do we need another bank? Well, to me, if they couldn't make money, they wouldn't be here. There must be a reason. And listening to their story on why they're what did I say?
They're different.
I'm sorry.
Credit union, they're different.
They are, you're right. Credit union, my bad, sorry. But their story on why they want to be here and what brought them to Hayes. And, they drive around Hayes, and they have a lot of employees that have went to Fort Hays State. And what I love most, being married to a teacher, is how involved they are with schools. And that is kind of their background. And I just think it's really cool to see, people, they've been looking at Hayes just like Chick-fil-A for many years, and they wanted the perfect spot, and now they're here. And it's exciting, yeah. It's another credit union, bank, whatever you want to call it. But
Financial institution.
Financial institution, thank you. But there must be a need, otherwise they wouldn't be here. So I just think it's cool to see what we got going on in this town, and like I always say, we're not done yet. So.
Absolutely. Okay, Commissioner Cunningham.
I also wanted to touch on maintenance, but with a different, still wanted to say thank you to everyone who helps do the different maintenance, not only the cleaning, but, the maintenance for equipment. But one thing, it wasn't tonight, but one thing I noticed by traveling recently in other communities is our curb and gutter repair. I mean, you don't notice it because it all looks nice here, but when you go outside to another community that doesn't maintain that, is when you go, wow, that makes a big difference. So again, thank you to staff who takes the time to find those areas, keep them up to par. I also want to make a comment on Chick-fil-A. I happen to have a client today at work who's from the Garden City area, and he said, I heard that you're getting a Chick-fil-A here. And I said, yes, this is true. And he said, I live in Garden. He comes to Hayes frequently, but he said, everyone in Garden keeps saying, how can Hayes be getting one? We're bigger. Why can't we have one? I said, I don't know.
That's right, Garden.
Yeah. So I thought that was a proud moment for us. It's a win that we're getting something that a larger community. Yes, I know. I could have just handed over your name. I should have told him, call David. And then lastly, I wanted to remind everybody, if you have time, next week is Hayes High's first track meet. They get a host. So with our new facilities, we finally are eligible and meet the requirements to host a track meet. It's next Thursday. I know we'll be here one more time, but it's all-day event. So if you have time and like the outdoors and the weather, go see the facilities. It's going to be amazing. So that's all I got.
Yeah, I got a few things. One of them was last week getting to welcome the Kansas Special Olympics here. That is always just an amazing experience to be out there. I mean, that is, it is one of the most like joyful places on the planet when you go there. I mean, everybody is so excited, so ready to just like have fun and do their competitions. It was just a blast. And I don't think I'm anything special, but I had some of them come up and remember who I was. Showed me their new uniforms they got. I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. And they were awesome uniforms. I'm a Jersey person, so I can't, they wouldn't let me buy one, but that's okay. It was wonderful. And then after that, had to go have a coffee meeting. Got to have a meeting with Representative Wassinger and thank her for the support for our water bill that she championed for us. And another thing that was exciting was sitting there, somebody came up and said, you were at Special Olympics. I said, yeah. I said, well, you know, my family's participating in there and we're from Wichita, and I just need to tell you that this is the greatest place that we can come to for Special Olympics. They said, Hayes is always so hospitable, it's clean, it's, they go, we just have so much fun when we come here. And that's a credit to everybody here. Staff for keeping things running so people don't have to think about it, and citizens being kind to one another and being hospitable for when people come to town. That's what makes Hayes great, and we need to continue that. I think that's really all I got. There's so much going on all the time to where it seems boring to us because we're constantly on the go. There's always something to do. We're always making things better. We're trying to make things better, and we can't get complacent with that. We have to continue building on what makes us awesome, and that's what we are. So thank you so much. No executive session? Okay, then we will adjourn at 5:21.